Thank you very much, Mr. President, dear colleagues. The geopolitical importance of the Arctic is growing. The climate change effects and growing competition for access to the Arctic, natural resources and increasing economic activities have brought both opportunities but also risks to the region. These include challenges also to security. The Arctic has long been an area of constructive international cooperation, and it has remained a low-tension cooperative regional order in the world. We want to keep it that way. We need to keep the Arctic a low-tension area. There is a need to avoid the militarization of the Arctic. The EU has a long-standing engagement in the Arctic. 3 EU member states are full members of the Arctic Council, and 7 others are observers. Considering that the EU is the world's leading funder in the Arctic, it should finally be able to become an observer as well. All of the EU Arctic member states, as well as some other states, have their own national Arctic strategies, which include a security dimension. But the EU does not have such a strategy. Our report foresees the need for a more coherent EU internal and external policy, an Arctic strategy and a concrete action plan on the EU's engagement in Arctic, taking into account all the aspects. That includes the foreign and security dimension. The geopolitical developments in the Arctic region affect the security situation in Northern Europe and globally. Cooperation in the Arctic has been good between countries, but we cannot bury our heads in the sand. We need to acknowledge the increased activities of Russia in the Arctic, the opening of military bases and their increased military presence in the Russian Arctic. The report acknowledges the fact that Russia is more and more active in the Arctic region and that the cooperation with Russia in the area must be continued with the aim of keeping the Arctic a low-tension area. The European Union should contribute in building civilian security mechanisms as well as in enhancing crisis and disaster management capacities, search and rescue infrastructure, and support the development of infrastructure in the European Arctic, including infotechnology and communications. There are 3 paragraphs in this report that were introduced during the AFET-ENVI joint committee votes that have caused concern in the Arctic member states. These paragraphs talk about the ban on the oil and gas extraction in the Arctic that has an important energy security dimension for the European Union. First and foremost, oil and gas extraction in the Arctic is a sovereign decision of the Arctic states, as manifested in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, Article 77. The EU should not call for a ban on something that is a sovereign right of a state under international law. Secondly, it is important for the energy security of the EU. Gas accounts for about 25% of Europe's primary energy demand. Norwegian gas covers more than 20% of the European consumption. More than half of the remaining resources are expected to be located north of the Arctic Circle. If we propose to ban the oil and gas extraction for the EU and EEA Arctic states, as proposed by these paragraphs, then we are deliberately putting ourselves to a more vulnerable position. What we do want is to have oil and gas extraction in the Arctic that is in line with safety regulations in the strongest terms, which is also already the case as regards EU and EEA Arctic countries. I also would like to thank my co-rapporteur, all the shadow rapporteurs and all of my colleagues for good cooperation in preparation of this report. Thank you.